What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Friday, February 14th, 2020. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. It's also Valentine's Day, so if you didn't have the flowers or the candies or the card or the ring or something, you are just out of luck here. So who was St. Valentine? Well, there are actually two different stories, and it may be talking about the same guy, just in different stages of his life. Now, the Roman Catholic Church continues to recognize St. Valentine as a real saint of the church, but he was removed from the general Roman calendar back in 1969 when they desainted a lot of other people because of the lack of reliable information about him. St. Valentine is the patron saint of lovers, epileptic, and beekeepers. I guess they had to triple up here because there's not enough saints to go around here. Now, one story is that St. Valentine was a Roman priest and physician who suffered martyrdom during the persecution of Christians by the Emperor Claudius II Gothicus about 270 AD. He was buried on the Via Flaminia, and Pope Julius reportedly built a basilica over his grave, which is sadly no longer there. The other story is he was the bishop of Terni, Italy, who was martyred also in Rome, and whose relics were later taken back to Terni. Now, again, this may be the same guy here, because in both cases, their martyrdom consisted of being condemned to death by the prefect of Rome, to be beaten to death with clubs and then beheaded, which is a lot more painful than the other way around, where they behead you and then beat you with clubs, beat the dead body with clubs here. Now, according to legend, St. Valentine signed a letter from your Valentine to his jailer's daughter, whom he had befriended and healed from blindness. Another common legend says that he defied the emperor's order and secretly married couples to spare the husbands from war. That would be a good one. It's also the birthday of Chuck Yeager. Mr. Right Stuff himself, he turns 97 today. And of course, for those of you who are my age, you remember he's the man who first broke the sound barrier in the Bell X1, the glamorous Glynis. And back in 1997, I had the great pleasure of meeting him up at Edwards Air Force Base during the celebration of the 50th anniversary of breaking the sound barrier. So he was enjoying his celebrity and his notoriety. The movie The Right Stuff had just come out, and everybody, oh, you're Chuck Yeager. And he was just really, really enjoying it. All right, so let's get into the serious news here. We got lots to talk about. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And the Democrats right now are running around in circles, screaming and shouting. They're in a little bit of a panic here. Joe Biden was supposed to be the great hope of the Democratic establishment to spare them from the horrifying prospect of a 2020 race between the Donald and Bernie Sanders. And today, that same establishment wants Joe out of the race because he's become the albatross around the neck of the Democratic Party. So now the Democrats are freaking out because Bernie Sanders has basically, it's clear he's going to be in the lead for the primary, and they're desperate to find some way to, once again, like they did in 2016, take it away from him and hand it to somebody else. But who can they hand it to who's got a chance of actually winning against Donald Trump? Nobody. And it isn't them supporting Donald Trump, it's just the Democrats can't mount a real challenge, which is why I'm convinced Hillary's going to try and step in at the convention, going to go for a brokered convention and say, yes, I will come out of retirement and return to public life, so I will save the Democratic Party. I'm willing to bet a whole plugged Turkish lira that that's exactly what's going to happen here. Now, as far as Bernie Sanders himself is concerned, they remember what happened. Okay, they remember what happened back in 2016. And they're very concerned it's going to happen again because apparently there are suspicions that something funny was going on down in Iowa. And they're concerned that once again, especially with Hillary's cronies dominating the Rules Committee at the Democratic National Committee, they're concerned it's going to happen again. Now, Bernie and his supporters are fearing a divisive, hijacked convention. Now, the fears persist despite party bosses rewriting the nomination rules after 2016 to quell a backlash from Sanders supporters, including scaling back the influence of the so-called superdelegates. Should have been in there in the first place. It's certainly not in the model proposed by the Constitution. So everybody's eyes are now on South Carolina's primary, which is due on the 29th. It's a crucial vote. It's the first primary in the South, and the first in which a majority of the voters are expected to be African American. So we're going to see how the candidates do down there. Now, Tucker Carlson ranted and raved the other day about the railroading of Roger Stone. And basically looking at the Obama-appointed judge, Amy Berman Jackson, who loaded up the trial with all bunch of cronies and phony experts, and it just really did everything that she could to guarantee that Stone was going to be convicted and sentenced to a long period in jail. Now, it's come on out that the jury forewoman was anti-Trump, anti-Stone. She made anti-Trump posts, has a history of Democratic activism, insisted there was no bias whatsoever, and yet her Twitter record shows she was making all kinds of disparaging comments about Roger Stone as soon as he was arrested. Now, I'm sorry, but generally in a jury trial, if a juror is caught with an opinion being stated publicly, they're not allowed on the jury, let alone allowed to be the foreperson. So this was a setup. Now, Pelosi is saying it's a setup, or she's admitting it's a setup. Pelosi is accusing President Trump of interfering in abuse of power in the Roger Stone case by saying prison for 7 to 9 years was excessive. That's not interference. That's an opinion. That's Trump's opinion, and he has as much right to his opinion as you have. That's not interfering. It's interfering if he calls up the Department of Justice and say, let Stone off the hook, or you're fired. Anyway, now here's a good one. Democratic Representative Swalwell is talking about impeaching Trump over the fact that he said Roger Stone's sentence of 7 to 9 years was excessive. They're saying it's not off the table. They are grasping at straws, expressing your opinion that Roger Stone's 7 to 9 year sentence is excessive. And by the way, I agree with that. That's my opinion too. You're going to try and impeach me? They're still out there trying to find some. Why do they hate this man so much? Well, I know one reason. If I am correct, and Hillary is planning on stepping on in, she doesn't want to run against Trump. She knows she can beat Mike Pence. She doesn't want to run against Trump again. And I would be very, very concerned that between now, November general election, there will be an attempt on Trump's life. So you Secret Service who are listening to this broadcast, drink lots of coffee, keep your eyes open, cinch up the bulletproof Kevlar, whatever it is that you and the president are wearing. Be on the lookout. My opinion is, another opinion, he's in danger. Now, I'm disappointed in Trump. He did not keep his promises regarding the big issues of the day, but I don't want to see him hurt. I'm not a hurting kind of person. Anyway, Joe Biden is in trouble, and not just with the delegate counts. Apparently, his big donors are now spooked. They're not sure he can win. They're getting ready to jump ship and put away their checkbooks and say, we're sorry, Joe. You're not getting any traction. And I think that's probably going to start happening after South Carolina, and certainly will start happening after Super Tuesday. Super Tuesday is really going to tell the story here. All righty. Now, it's come out over the last couple of weeks that the FBI lied, ooh, imagine my shock, about the documents regarding Seth Rich. And now, because it came out that they were lying about whether they had them or not, Judicial Watch has filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the FBI for all records related to Seth Rich. Seth Rich was the voter expansion data director. It is thought by many analysts, including yours truly, that he was the leak that took the files off the DNC computer and gave them to WikiLeaks. Now, we know this leakage was not done by a hack because of the timestamps on the files. It's too quick to have gone over the internet. Even with the fastest internet that's out there, timestamps don't show that. Timestamps are consistent with somebody simply dragging and dropping the files onto a USB 3 flash drive. So nobody's been charged in connection with Seth Rich's death. The case has not been closed, and the DC police are offering a $25,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible. Okay. All right. Now, down in Virginia, they have joined on to what is called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. This is an attempt by several states to completely bypass the Electoral College, and Virginia is the latest one to sign on. They've passed a bill to give all of the states' electoral votes to whoever wins the national popular vote. So if Virginia's primary goes to, shall we say, Bernie Sanders, this Virginia law would say, well, we can instruct the electors to give all their votes to whoever wins the national popular vote, let's say hypothetically Hillary Clinton, with all those illegal immigrants voting for her. Now, this is an attempt to bypass the Constitution. It's unconstitutional what they're doing. And for one thing, there's no place in the Constitution that says the state government has any kind of authority to override the electoral process. Now, they do have the right to, define how they're going to run the elections. But as far as steering the electors, saying, yes, this guy won, but you got to vote for that guy, that's not in there. It's definitely not in there. Okay, so anyway, remember Andrew McCabe? And he misled investigators who were probing how the FBI and Department of Justice handled matters associated with the 2016 election. And apparently the Justice Department has dropped the case against him. Charges against former acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe for allegedly lying during an internal investigation have been dropped. All righty, let's go to the international news. We were talking about what's going on over in Syria, where apparently U.S. troops have come under fire, not by the Syrian Arab Army, although there's been a clash there, but just the Syrian civilians are attacking the U.S. soldiers there. They were stopped by Russian mediation, and apparently a 22-year-old Syrian was killed, another man was injured during this altercation between U.S. troops and locals in northern Syria. And the showdown happened after a U.S. convoy diverged from its patrol route. In other words, they were driving someplace they weren't supposed to be. So the incident took place near the village of Kirbet Ammo, east of the town of Kimishli, on last Wednesday. Clashes broke out after the American patrol veered off its expected route and was stopped at a Syrian army checkpoint. Don't you have maps? Don't you have GPS here? So inside a single week, the Syrian troops have fought Turkey, they have fought Israel, they have fought the United States, and they have fought Al-Qaeda. Back on the 10th, Syrian artillerymen inflicted 6 killed in actions on the Turkish military when they rained shells on the Taftanaz air base occupied by the Turkish military, from where the latter had been firing on Syrian troops in Sirakib. Exotic names over there. On the 12th of this month, just 2 days ago, Syrian National Defense Force guardsmen opened fire at U.S. armored cars on the village of Kirbet Ammo. We talked about that one already. On February 6th, and again today, Syrian air defense troops engaged Israeli missiles over Damascus in the south. Assad is still in power. They can't get him out. Absolutely cannot get him out. Meanwhile, the amphibious assault ship USS Bataan transited the Strait of Hormuz into the Persian Gulf Wednesday, becoming the first U.S. Navy big deck to enter those strategic waters in 2020. It's carrying thousands of Marines as part of the Bataan's amphibious readiness group. So the Commodore said, our passage through this important strait and continued presence in the area plays a critical role in maintaining the freedom of navigation, key to regional security and stability here. This was Captain Lance Lesher. Now, this next story is one that you sort of knew was coming, but you were hoping cooler heads would prevail. The NATO allies agreed to expand the mission in Iraq. Now, this is coming from a demand by Defense Secretary Mark Esper that NATO members play a larger role in the fight against the Islamic State. Now, that's not what's really going on in Iraq. What's going on in Iraq is the people of Iraq want the U.S. forces to go home. You have been here for all these years. You've blown the place up. You killed the rightful leader of the country. You put in a puppet government. Haven't you done enough? Isn't it time to go home? So the U.S. wants to garrison Iraq, and they want NATO to come in and help them do it. And NATO apparently says, yeah, sure, it'll be fun. I mean, I'm not going to personally go down to Iraq. You know, I could get killed. But we have plenty of young people here. We'll send out there. Excuse me a second. Sorry about that. We have plenty of young people we can send on down there. You know, we'll send down our people, and, you know, the refugees will come back, and that'll all be really kind of a good thing. All right, over in Israel, as you know, they're coming up on election on March 2nd. Netanyahu is struggling to regain his position in order that it affords immunity from prosecution for his bribery and corruption charges here. Now, the illegal settlers are out there making a demand to Netanyahu, saying, if you want us to vote for you, you will apply sovereignty now. In other words, they're pressuring him to say the settlements are formally a part of Israel. This, of course, is a breach of international law, but Netanyahu just might go ahead and do it. He wants to hang on to that office here. Now, interestingly enough, Netanyahu's official Twitter account posted a thread attacking the UN Human Rights Council for its, quote, bias against Israel, end quote, and revealing Israel's government's role in promoting laws in most U.S. states to take action, quote, against the international body, which triggered angry reactions from Americans. Actually, the quote was promoting laws in most U.S. states to take action, end quote, against the international body. And the reason it triggered angry reactions from Americans is this is a tacit admission that Israel is interfering in U.S. policies. Okay. Claire, here you go. You do. Now, Israel has started construction of a settler-only road from Nablus to the Jordan Valley. And Israel is notorious for this. And by the way, they get the money for all this from the United States of America, where they build these roads that are for the settlers only. And they go right through the Palestinian territories, but the Palestinians are not allowed to use them. So occupation authorities have started construction work on a new road that would link the illegal Jewish settlements of Eli and Shiloh in the north of the occupied West Bank with the Jordan Valley. Now, Gissan Dagias, the official in charge of the settlements file in the northern West Bank, told Wafa News Agency yesterday, the settler-only road is about 8 kilometers long and passes through fertile agricultural lands in the Palestinian villages of Duma, Telfit, Kiryut, and Al-Magar, south of Nablus all the way to the village of Fasayil, say that 3 times fast, in the central Jordan Valley. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443. Caller just called in. We'll get to him after these words from our sponsors. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And a reminder that RBN is having a fundraising fundraising campaign right now. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I'm dealing with some stuff over here with the control room. Um, they're having a fundraiser right now. They need your help. They need the money. Things are so tight. We're getting ready to eat the giant mutant hamster that runs in the little wire cage that powers our control rooms here. And if you can help, please do. First of all, thanks to those who have already stepped in and helped. We really do appreciate it. And especially, I want to mention those people who send in anonymous donations, both to RBN and to whatreallyhappened.com. And obviously, without a return address and a name, we can't send you either an email or a postal letter to thank you. So we're going to thank you here and now. We're not ignoring you. So if you can help out RBN, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. Now, regarding our YouTube feed, we tried an experiment to set up a new stream and see if that would work. It's not, we're getting emails all over the place. It's not working. We're aware it's not working. Our engineers are trying to figure out what the heck is going on. In the end, I think YouTube is messing with us like they have with so many other people, and we're just going to have to find another streaming provider, even if it means putting a streamer on my own web server. So that's in progress right now. So you don't need to write in anymore and tell us it's broken. We know it's broken. It was working earlier today. When I first set it up and tested it, it absolutely did work. And now it doesn't. All righty. So let's go to the phones here. And we are going to start with Joe in Tennessee. Aloha, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just enjoying the hysterics from the left CIA-controlled media about this whole Roger Stone thing and Barr getting upset about Trump's tweets. And, you know, I mean, Trump's the president. He has the right to comment about anything he wants. If he wants to pardon Roger Stone, he could. But, you know, the fact of the matter is this is all misdirection. The real story, as I said 3 days ago, is about Jessie Liu being brought to the altar of the Treasury Department job and then having the rug pulled out from under her. And then the follow-up on that story is today Barr appointing a special prosecutor to look into the Flynn prosecution. That's a big story because Flynn was railroaded. It's going to be proven he was railroaded. The Army, the Defense Intelligence Agency, they have everybody recorded. I'll guarantee it. All their signals have been intercepted. So the reason you're seeing this hysterical misdirection on the left and from, you know, guys like Blumenthal and the whole establishment shill congression and senators and it's just the whole establishment from the deep state is because they're caught red-handed, and Trump now has been emboldened by their stupid impeachment, and they're really howling. But the interesting thing, once again, is how the howling is misdirected at really a petty issue, which is the sentencing of Roger Stone, which isn't going to matter one way or the other because Trump's going to obviously pardon him and all the others. But the real issue is why they're not talking about this special prosecutor for Flynn, and why the fact of Jessie Liu losing her job. Those are the big stories. Let me tell you, those are stories that are rocking Washington right now. Yet it's something we're all just fed the BS about the Roger Stone hysteria. It's actually funny that they think we're so stupid. But we're not. You know, that's the one beauty of the internet and all the alternate information sources that we have, and it's a reason why I like to call and others calls to just send these things out into space, these ideas, this information. You just broadcast it, and it happens. It's like the grand karma of the universe. You say it, you know, you speak the spoken word, the power of the word, you know. So I want to just thank you for allowing us to do this. And I want you to understand, like, the karma and the you know, the self-correcting things in the universe that overcome the power that overcomes the despotism and tyranny. It works. You know, sooner or later it'll work. There's a kind of a reset in just general the way things are, and that's the problem. It's when you have guys that are brought in like Barr in them, if they don't correct things like legally and through democratic means, it moves on to worse. It's like having a disease or something. You treat it early, or it gets worse, and it calls for worse measures. And when I see the corruption of the Department of Justice and the FBI, I'm so sickened by it. And I mean, I'm really upset that they haven't corrected it yet, because, you know, I just watched this arrogant FBI guy, Ray, you know, talking about, oh, well, we've passed some rule changes to prevent these things from happening again. Well, rule changes. You know, why are there prison
They're not following the rules to begin with. Joe,
Right.
Stay on the line. We're going to come back to you after these words from our sponsor. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're talking with Joe in Tennessee. And Joe, just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about that FBI director, Ray, and what a disgusting, arrogant human being he is. I watched him at his congressional hearing talking about the big threat of white nationalist violence. You know, most of these, I'd say 95% of the white nationalist violent extremists that are ever arrested are FBI provocative, either men that are mentally ill, entrapped, or it was all orchestrated by the FBI. It's such a fraud and canard, and it's all FBI agents and infiltrators and agent provocateurs behind like 99% of the white nationalist violence. But you see, white nationalism is something the government establishment's against. So, of course, they're going to use their goons in the FBI to try to entrap us and try to orchestrate fake violence. Yet, the same FBI ignores any kind of left-wing violence, any kind of Antifa-inspired violence, or violence like what happens in Jacksonville that never gets, you know, I'm sure that guy's some kind of left-wing. He looks like a homosexual to me, but that's besides the point. But I'm just saying, he looks like one of these daffodil, snowflake, white, you know, lefties. And yet that's like ignored. That's not a threat to the FBI. But I could tell you lots of stories, even personal stories about the FBI, like orchestrating or attempting to entrap people or orchestrate, you know, black crime rallies in Orlando, for instance. A guy named Dave Gleddy, he wrote a book about it, actually. He tried to get me involved in it because I was involved in 9/11 Truth, and he wanted to get me into something that the FBI would be more comfortable with. Like, it would be more trouble for me and yet get me off 9/11 Truth, which is something the government doesn't want you to talk about. Or we could talk about Hal Turner and his radio show, where he turns out he was an FBI informant and agent, and how he would like try to get whites to become radical white nationalists. And I used to call up and say, no, you guys should like go to college and join the CIA and FBI and work within the system. Oh, they don't like hearing that because, of course, Hal Turner was an FBI agent. They don't want you to like normalize yourself and do peaceful means of change. They want you to be on that crazy fringe. You know, so that's what the FBI does. Most of these extremists in any kind of movement are all orchestrated by the government itself. So why do we need an FBI? Personally, I hope the Army, after the outrage of what they've done to General Flynn, and I'm sure they have intelligence on all these individual corrupt people in the FBI, I would like to see the FBI cleared out by bayonet. And just everywhere I hear, oh, there's good agents. Well, sorry, your institution is so corrupt, it's a threat to the democracy of this country. And if you're such a good agent, why aren't you speaking out about all the FBI entrapment against innocent people, let alone Roger Stone and Michael Flynn? But let's talk about the little guys, the guys that they try to make like the white nationalists that they arrest, and it turns out the FBI was the ones behind the whole thing. You know, that gets lost. They just want a good media story, you know, or what they did at Waco. I mean, the FBI needs to be shut down, period. And when you watch a guy like Ray, that was like one of the last chance that we had to like legitimately try to clean it out, the corruption. But he's basically is such an arrogant ass that he's going to protect that institution at all costs, and in the meantime, he's going to destroy it. The FBI is being destroyed, and the Department of Justice, they're being destroyed because people are trying to save the institution instead of cleaning out the corruption. and that is going to
Yes.
end up destroying it. And we talked earlier about there being a correcting force in the universe that kind of doesn't let the pendulum swing one way too far or the other. But you might be laughing, you think you might be getting away with it, but it's gonna be worse for you if you don't correct it. It's like anything else. If you got a problem, you fix it. If your engine's got a problem, you fix it. Or else what happens? It gets worse and worse and worse. And that's what we got now. And I'm so disgusted. When I see him on TV, I feel like vomiting. I mean, that arrogance, that man, he's so sickening because he has the opportunity to save that institution. And instead, he's destroying it by covering everything up. And they're not going to get away with it. It's just going to be worse. It's just going to end up making things worse and more ugly, which I wish wouldn't happen. But it's to the point now where like I said, the Army ought to just go in there at the point of a bayonet and just close that place down. And Trump should just declare the federal marshals the new FBI and fire them all. Just fire them all. All they do is orchestrate extremism and entrap people. It's disgusting what the FBI has become. It really is disgusting. And I'm sorry about being passionate about it, but
I understand your passion here, and arrogance is part of the corporate culture of the FBI. I've never met an FBI agent who wasn't arrogant. And of course, this idea of keeping things covered up goes all the way back to the very early days of the FBI, when the number one rule coming out of J. Edgar Hoover was never embarrass the agency. And so they've been engaged in covering over mistakes and we got the wrong person. We're going to frame this other person because we got to look like we accomplished something. Whether it was Bruno Richard Hauptmann or James Earl Ray, yes, the FBI, we got our man. No, you didn't. You railroaded and framed an innocent party.
Well, and then the other side of it is not just do they entrap the innocent, but they cover up for the political class. I mean, anytime you want like a criminal event that the political class did, you want it to go die somewhere, they put it under FBI investigation, and then you can't talk about it, right? You can't investigate it because, quote, it's under investigation. No thanks. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, they're using the FBI investigations to head off all other investigations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the Warren Commission did when JFK was assassinated. At that time, it would have been the jurisdiction of the Dallas authorities to look into. But Johnson set up the Warren Commission, said they're the lead investigators on this, and they went down there and they grabbed all the evidence away from the authorities in Texas and brought it back to Washington, D.C., mutated it, hacked it, slashed on it, and then put it out there saying, crazed lone nut assassin, don't bother looking anywhere else.
Well, I think that's part of what has to happen. It's like at the county and the local level, when there's a crime in your area and the FBI shows up, they need to be shunned. The local officials should say, no, we don't want your corrupting influence involved in our investigations. Because that's what they'll do. They're nothing but an agent of the corrupt government. They're like, it's foot soldiers. It's Gestapo. Let's face it, the FBI is basically the American Gestapo now. And
yes,
maybe it's always been that way. But boy, they know exactly what to do to destroy evidence for the political class, to silence investigation. Look at Hillary. I mean, they let them destroy their phones, like all her aides. They smashed her phones, and I mean, the whole thing with the you were talking earlier about the WikiLeaks and the leak and how it couldn't have been, the Russians. It had to have been basically Seth Rich on a hard drive or a flash drive because it's time-stamped. Yet the FBI never even investigated it. To this day, they backed the Russia fraud, which is provably not true just by the fact that it had to have been through a hard drive, So it just shows, and meanwhile, all this investigation and Mueller, and these people technically should have known from day one that it's all been a freaking fraud. And it's just such an embarrassment, and I don't know how long that we can tolerate it. I mean, it's one thing to try to pull the wool over our eyes. It's another thing to make us have to be so retarded to buy their retarded story. It's an insult to our intelligence on top of everything else. I mean, it just disgusts me. I'm so disgusted by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Waco was bad enough, and then 9/11, and
Vince
it's just
Foster.
Vince Foster, yep, Randy Weaver. I mean, it's just been one outrage after another, and when you watch these things happen, you know exactly the MO. They show up, they destroy evidence, everything's under an investigation forever, so you can never get any information. They come in and they take over everything, so none of the local police or local investigators can get involved. It's just, it goes, like you said, it goes back to Kennedy and all that, but when are they going to have to pay a price for this?
Well, not anytime soon, the way things look right now, until the entire government self-destructs. Then they'll all be out there having to be vacuum cleaner salesmen or something. Anyway, listen, Joe, we've let you talk long enough. The phone lines are loading up here, so we're going to let you go.
Bye.
And we're going to switch over to Jim in Illinois. Jim, thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. First of all, Judge Jackson, she was appointed by Clinton, not Obama.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, okay. And this is the bottom line. I don't care if it's Roger Stone or Trump or Flynn or anyone else. If you're going to be in a high-profile position, you're going to have enemies. You're going to have people that want to tear you down. So why put yourself in a situation where you could be accused of something or you did something wrong? Because there are too many people out there who want to get you. I'm pretty sure there's people out there who are waiting for you to do something stupid, Michael, either by saying something over the air or maybe making a phone call. And nowadays, there are too many people out there who want to hurt others, including our government. So the best thing to do, don't put yourself in a situation where they can come after you. I'm not saying Trump is right or wrong regarding the impeachment, but the fact is he put himself in a position where people could criticize him, and he did not listen to the people around him.
I think he's listening to the people around him a little bit too much, and he's sort of lost the original Donald Trump that we all thought we were voting for back in 2016. But Donald Trump has a First Amendment right to his opinion. The people who criticize him for it, they have a First Amendment right to criticize him. But to say that this is an impeachable offense, that is so far over the shark that we can't even see the shark anymore.
Oh, I would agree with that, and you're right. He does have the right to say something, and I have to agree with him. 7 to 9 years, that is kind of long.
That is.
Come on now. And I'm not a fan of Trump or Roger Stone, but that is a little too long. But Roger Stone, if you go back to the trial, his behavior, I'm surprised the judge did not put him in jail at that particular time for his behavior. Again, you remember Jerome Corsi, where the FBI wanted to go after him, and they backed off. And Jerome Corsi did not allow anyone to go after him because he did not do anything wrong. So, well, Michael, I'm going to let you go on that note. You take care.
All right. Thanks an awful lot here. We're going to switch over to Tom in Florida. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha to you today, Michael. Everything's going good. Happy Valentine. Anyway,
Happy
Michael.
Valentine's Day.
Yes. Michael, what's going on is this Avenatti, he's been found guilty. Now, I wonder what kind of sentence he's going to get. I bet you they slap him on the wrist, give him probation. The guy ripped off, millions of bucks for Nike and all that? They're not going to do nothing to this Avenatti. Michael Avenatti, whatever nonsense he was pulling. But we'll see what happens. If they want to, I wonder what kind of sentence you think him and Harvey Weinstein will get, Michael?
Well, Weinstein's going to get off. Any fines and settlements that he paid comes out of the insurance that they had on him for his production company. But as far as Avenatti, I imagine he'll do some jail time, but not the full 25-year sentence that he could be imposed for all the money that he extorted. He's a real slimeball, and we only know about him because he was representing what's that porn star?
Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, Stormy Daniels. Yeah, and he represents the worst of what lawyering can be.
Well, Michael, you remember he was talking all this nasty stuff about Trump, but the demon rats, I believe, they're going to slap him on the wrist. Probably, maybe they'll give him 5 years. He'll get time served, and he'll be out in 3. If it would have been the other way around, a conservative type person, they'd probably be looking at 20, 25 years for sure. This is a Kabbalah. Michael. It's a big cabal, and now you got Trump with all these other weasels that he had, like this guy Kelly and Bolton. They're a bunch of weasels that I guess Trump's not screening these guys properly or something. But Trump did say something today, Michael, that from now on he's gonna dictate who's gonna be listening to his phone calls when he talks to international leaders. Which I thought to being a president, that you would have that right, but evidently I guess you don't, because you had vitamins and the schmucks in there. Listen, Israel's listening to everything Trump says. That's for damn sure. But let's get to the point on this, Michael. Also, you heard about the NFL football player playing for the Browns who smacked the quarterback over the head with the helmet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, they're going to lift his suspension now at the beginning of the 21 season here, and now he's going around saying that the guy used a profanity at him in a statement, and they showed video of the quarterback for the Steelers, and he's saying, "Hey, I never said none of that. But this guy's already got a track record of being a liar." Smacks the quarterback over the head. The reason this guy is, if that would have been the other way around, they would have probably kicked the guy out of the league permanently forever. Because you remember, there's millions of dollars at stake for these NFL players. But what's really upsetting is that they in the locker room, the sports guy was saying, well, when they're in the locker room, they call use that word out each other all the time. But if you say it, you're a marked man. But they call each other the N-word all the time in the locker room. But this guy supposedly got smacked over the head, and he told the defensive guy that he said that never happened. But the other guy's got a record. But this is all about the money too. Here, these guys are getting paid millions of dollars. And actually, when he hit that quarterback on that play, the game was already over, and he tried to kill the quarterback. But the quarterback, actually, if you look at the video, he restrained himself for taking like a big vicious hit at the end. 25 seconds left in the game? The guy's trying to break his leg. I mean, come on! And now the guy's using that racial card again. Here we go again.
Yeah.
So it's
crazy here. Now, Tom,
it's always got to be a racial card, Michael. It's ridiculous.
Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of saying he said this, the other guy that, you need to use names or other identifiers, because it's very easy for people to get confused. Who are you talking about? Who's the one with a track record of lying?
Oh, yeah, okay, Randolph. I'm sorry, Randolph. The quarterback's name is Randolph. Randolph, and the other guy's Miles. I think it's Garrett. I don't know. I think it's Griffith. Can't remember. I just saw that about an hour ago, and I'm like, what a crazy story that is. But they're going to get the guy back in, whatever. That's just something I had to get off my chest. I'm like, the guy could have killed the guy if you really hit him in the head. Hit him right in the right spot with the helmet. But
Okay, Tom, I got to let you go. We got to take a break for commercials. We got other callers waiting on the line, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. We're going to go back to the phones to Dean in Vancouver. And Dean, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind? Oh, Dean dropped. We lost Dean, so let's go to Paul in New Jersey. Aloha, Paul. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. For one, for Joe from Tennessee, there's a really good book about the founding of the FBI, and it's called Policing Sexuality by Jessica Pliley. And it explains that the FBI was actually created due to the Mann Act, pursuing this somewhat mythical, thing about women crossing state lines as prostitutes. So that's really the origin of the FBI. Not intended to be this giant bureaucracy it morphed into being. As for the far to associate with Hal Turner, and I like Hal Turner. And while I was associated with him, I knew he was, or suspected he might be with the feds. But to me, it never bothered me because I was always an advocate of free speech. And remember, the far-right guys on the fringe are often lots of fun because they're very truthful. And, you can see that in the popularity of Andrew Anglin's website of the Daily Stormer, which is very cutting edge and very influential. A lot of people sneak off to go read it. So the far right is very popular and always will be popular. And I think, we can all see how it worked out for Hal Turner in the long run by his working with the Fed. So he left a good cautionary tale of, working with the feds, playing loose, and trying to be a bit of a trickster and troublemaker. And look where he ended up. He ended up serving several years in prison. Okay. And
that's a real problem when you work with the feds. Is you're kind of out there on your own.
Yeah, and they'll turn on you in a second, because that's ultimately what they did to him. They egged him on to say outrageous things, and he said such outrageous things, he got a judge up in Connecticut mad at him. And then the judge had him thrown in prison through a kind of a very sham trial. So in a sense, it really was a test of free speech, and in a sense, the government failed, and that was a beginning of free speech repression, in my opinion, because what he said was, to me, relatively innocuous. But again, a cautionary tale for all of us of what you can say in public and who you can insult with the hate speech.
Well, I don't. Go ahead.
No. Lastly, just to sum up, because I hear some of the guys out there, the Trump cheerleaders are waving the pom-poms. And they're impressed by Donald, and they're all mad about all these other people, and they're mad at the employees of Donald Trump that Donald Trump hasn't fired and has every means to fire. Now, remember earlier in the week we said about how, Trump fired 70 people at the NSA. And can I hold? The NSA?
Yeah, hold on there, Paul. We're going to bring you back after station identification. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we're talking with Paul in New Jersey. Take it away, Paul.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, I just want to wrap it up by saying, Donald Trump, the people were talking about her earlier this week. He fired 70 Obama holdovers who were, moles or whatever in the National Security Council. And the point about it is, first of all, it took 3 years to do that. I'm supposed to be impressed that it took him 3 years to finally get around to firing these 70 people. Think of the money he could have saved us if he fired them 3 years ago. Think of the taxpayers.
Well, I don't know that he would. I don't think he would have saved a lot of money, because all these people are probably going to get replaced somewhere down the road. But you're absolutely right. He waited too long to do it. He wanted to be magnanimous in victory. He should have gone in there day one of his administration and scraped out all of those holdover people and put in people that he knew he could trust. And that was, I think, his biggest strategic mistake.
Well, that's if those agencies actually do anything. Remember, we don't really need so many of these people, as the great Vladimir Putin said. Vladimir Putin made a speech 2 months ago, and he said, hey, the goal is to replace bureaucrats with artificial intelligence. A lot of these people are not needed in these positions anymore. We can empty a lot of these people out for good and never replace them. As Joe from Tennessee said, he said, what do we need this big FBI for? And that's the point. Fire a lot of these people and don't replace them. Now, and get this. Now, we're supposed to be impressed that he fired 70 people, but if you look up on the news, what happened back in November is that it basically is a news headline saying Trump has suspended, fired, or demoted 8,000 people in the Veterans Administration, Veterans Affairs. So, which is fine for me. If they're ineffective bureaucrats, good. Get rid of them. So maybe the 70 that he hired wasn't a political hit. It was just they were ineffective. And that's what I'm saying about a lot of bureaucrats, a lot of these paper pusher jobs. And this is what I love about Andrew Ng and the whole thought about, robotics and the rest of it. The reality is a lot of these middle management types, even in the private sector, are not needed, let alone even more in government bureaucracy. So if he wants, and as you fire these government workers, that means you're going to ideally save the taxpayers' money, and better still, give the taxpayers back their money or use that money to pay off the national debt, which would be an actual conservative thing to do. Because as we know, great leaders like Vladimir Putin, right, what they do is they pay off their debt, and they actually as time goes on, they have less debt. Get that, Trump? The fact is, failed losers, we should call it, Mr. Trump, they run up the debt from 19.6 trillion to 23 trillion in the first 3 years of your administration. That's what losers do. That's what failures do. Failures. Right? And so
Yes.
why should I be impressed with a guy who takes 3 years to finally getting to live up to his reputation? Because what did he used to do on that TV show of his? What was the big punchline at the end of
You're
the show?
fired.
Right.
You're
we
fired.
hire a guy because he professed like he's going to balance the budget. He's going to be Mr. Fiscally Responsible. He's going to close the bases. Remember, those wars in the Middle East are bad, right?
Mhm.
And deliver. And then I might actually like the guy. But he hasn't delivered. He lets this bureaucracy perpetuate itself. He's running up incredible amounts of spending. He gives the Democrats everything they want in the budget a few months ago, remember? That was in the summer, I think it was. He gave the Democrats everything they wanted. And so I'm supposed to be impressed with him. But now am I supposed to be mad at Bob Barr because Bob Barr didn't, indict Andrew McCabe? But it's not, of course, Trump's fault for allowing Bob Barr to remain there. No, it's never Trump's fault. You see how it works with the pom-pom waivers?
Yeah.
They never hold Trump responsible. It's the underlings that Trump appointed who are always the responsible, but never the boss, never Trump. He's our savior here to perfect our nation. And this is my point about this man. That's why he's not going to be getting my vote this year.
Okay.
On that note, Michael, thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to let you go and switch to Steve in West Virginia. Aloha, Steve. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, how you doing? You sound really good. I just want to tell you, I can always tell when you're sick because of your voice. It just sounds different. Anyways, I got two quick things, and I want to say I totally agree with you, the caller right below me. I'm not voting for Trump this time either. I'm sick of this stuff. But first, I want to get into...
If Hillary comes in as the Democratic nominee, I'm going to vote for Trump. Otherwise, my vote is up for grabs at this point.
Yeah, I'll probably sit out no matter what. But anyways, the first thing I got is you mentioned that you thought Harvey Weinstein was going to get off. It looks to me like he's heading towards the same thing that happened with Cosby. It looks to me like he's going to be convicted if you watched any of the trial or paid any attention. He's using that walker. And to me, I mean, people are not stupid, you know. I mean, they're not going to feel sorry for him. I think he's going to be convicted. Maybe you see something different, but whether he gets a long sentence or I don't know. I mean, what did Cosby get? 6 years or 5 years or I don't know.
Well,
So,
I think Cosby got convicted because of his openly unrepentant attitude, and I think he just annoyed everybody with that. Weinstein is playing the game, and Weinstein may get a sentence, and it may be suspended, or he may get probation or something like that. But in all the years that I worked in Hollywood, I saw a lot of people who got away with a lot of really nasty stuff because there was so much money invested in them, and that money becomes your shield.
Mm-hmm. Mike, don't you think? I think Weinstein's case is worse than Cosby's. He assaulted a lot more women, and he forcibly. I mean, Cosby used Quaaludes or whatever it was to drug women, but Weinstein violently did it to some women. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, but you see him getting off. Is that right?
I think it's going to be a very light sentence compared to Cosby.
Okay, Mike. The other quick thing is, and please think about this for just a second. What do you see happening this summer for travel? I mean, like if people want to go to Europe and stuff. I mean, is there going to be this panic still with this coronavirus, or
I imagine there's going to be some real bargains for tourism to China.
Yeah, but I mean, what about I hear some people saying, I'll be honest with you, I was in the VA the other day, and one of the doctors told me they wouldn't get on a plane for nothing. They said they wouldn't even get on a plane in the United States. So I'm just wondering, because I plan on trying to go to Italy this summer, and God, what I'm watching, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go or not. So I'm just wondering what you think about the whole thing.
I think there's a lot of hype about the virus. Almost all of the infections and deaths have been in China. And there's talk about, somebody here is sick and somebody there is sick. You're really at much more risk from the regular seasonal flu than you are from the coronavirus. It's just for some reason it's caught the media's attention and they fanned it up and everybody's reacting like it's, the coming of Captain Trips and they're reacting. But I imagine probably this summer, because of that fear slowing tourism down, there's going to be a lot of bargains to be had. Claire and I are planning a couple of trips for this summer. Now that we're here in the heartland, we're going to visit family in New England. Claire wants to do one of the local Comic-Cons where John Noble is going to be visiting. She's a huge John Noble fan. And so we're still deciding if we're going to drive or we're going to fly. Probably going to fly and rent a car at the other end. But we're not letting the fear of the coronavirus interfere with those plans.
Yeah. Mike, one last thing. Do you think that, Jeff Ritz has this Henry Nyman guy on his show probably 3 or 4 times a week, and now Yoshi Yamatsu is on the show a lot, and they're saying they think that the Chinese they have 400 million people quarantined. That just seems outrageous. That just seems impossible. The cops you would need to quarantine that many people.
I would agree, unless it's a voluntary quarantine. You can simply say, we're quarantining Shanghai, and all the people in Shanghai voluntarily, of their own free will, they stay indoors. Which, if you go back to the person you talked to at the VA, and they're out there saying, well, I'm not going to get on an airplane. You can quarantine a city just with a good news broadcast.
The other thing is True News is even jumping on the bandwagon where they're saying, and it's hard for me to believe that they're jumping on that bandwagon, but they're even saying that this thing is going to lead to millions and millions, and it's going to come here to the United States. And it's almost like somebody's paying these people to spread fear. So I don't know. I'm just curious.
Well, a lot of people are spreading fear, and it's already here in the United States, but it's only a few cases. It's like 15. We're losing more people to drunk driving than we are to the coronavirus.
Of course. Mike, that's all I had. Have a good weekend.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go. We're going to do a shout out to our honor affiliates who just now rejoined the network. And the phone lines are empty, 800-313-9443. Now, hats off to U.S. Congresswoman Betty McCollum, who came on out declaring that AIPAC is a hate group and they're weaponizing anti-Semitism. And she's absolutely right. AIPAC wants you to hate the people they want you to hate. And they do weaponize anti-Semitism. They fan it up. They create it so they can point at it and say, we're being put upon, they're hating the Jewish people here. Well, stop painting swastikas on your own home. Maybe the whole thing will die down a little bit. Remember, the ADL was funding the Nazi Party back in the 1930s, and we have seen time after time after time these so-called hate crimes turn out to be hoaxes, where they're doing it to themselves because they want the sympathy and they want the media attention and they want the political gain that comes from being a victim. Oh, hey, I'm a victim. Please give me special privileges. Give me more money. Give me more protection. So, Betty, good for you. Would love to have you on the show. Good for her. All right. Now, the Senate has passed the War Powers Act. There are apparently 2 bills duking it out in the Congress. One is an authorization for the use of force in Iran. And then there's the War Powers Act, which seeks to restore to Congress the constitutional authority to declare war. That's what the Constitution says. The president cannot declare a war. It has to be up to the entire Congress. And unfortunately, back when George W. Bush was president, the Congress sort of abandoned their responsibility to decide who and when we go to war, who against rather. And since then, presidents just fling our troops, fling your children into places all over the world. It's no wonder we've got all these military engagements, 7 official wars that we're engaged in, plus who knows how many covert interventions are taking place around the world right now. We don't know. It's being hidden from us. It really is a world war. They refuse to call it that. It really is here. So anyway, the Senate passed this War Powers Act to basically say that the president may not declare a war without the authorization of Congress. Trump is expected to veto it. All right, well, as long as we're talking about the coronavirus, article out of the Investment Watch blog stating kind of the obvious that coronavirus threat is greatest in cities and other densely populated environments. Well, that's just common sense. You know, if you have a lot of room between you and your neighbors, the possibility of contagion is very, very low. If you're all jammed together in tight little offices or tight little subways or, you know, tight little diners or whatever, the possibility of contagion goes up accordingly. So, anyway. Apparently, the Department of Defense has a global campaign plan for pandemic influenza and infectious diseases, which, according to this article in Blacklisted News, has now been activated by executive order. So, like I said, it almost doesn't really matter how serious the coronavirus is or is not. Everybody's acting like it's a slate wiper, and the damage to our economy and our societies is very, very real. We're going to go back to the phones here to W in Texas. Aloha, W. What's on your mind?
Yes. Just about the DNC primaries. I guess I've had a chance, like everybody else, to kind of review all the candidates and everything. And even before the whole DNC got started, I was already a Tulsi fan. And I'm even more of a Tulsi fan now. It's crazy how they have shaded her this whole time. It all goes back. I know everybody listening knows this. It all goes back to when she defended. She was the vice chair of the DNC in 2016.
W, I hate to interrupt. We've got a really poor phone connection, and I need you to get your mouth close to the microphone and speak a little bit slower so we can understand you, because we're having some difficulty with this.
Sure. Okay, no problem. So I'm a Tulsi fan, and it goes, and I noticed, as like everybody else, that I guess the demonization of 2016, when she was the DNC vice chair, and she stepped down and supported Bernie, and then everybody was going at her, has been going at her ever since, along with, of course, her idea about saving money, saving our budget via not so much warmongering. And of course, that goes back to the fact that now, not only has Trump increased the budget, he's supposed to be conservative, not only has he increased the budget through more military defense spending, but now the new thing is he wants to reduce social programs while still advancing more military. And so it's the irony of all this is that Tulsi is actually, as a liberal, that makes sense, right? Because we're spending so much on war. Now he's talking about digging into social programs, things that actually make sense. And so I just want, I know she has a fan base that's libertarian a little bit, and it's the irony is that so many progressives and Democrats that have been so brainwashed by the media, when she's actually the best candidate for the Democratic Party, and it's such a shame that it's happening. I don't know what it's going to take to get her to the top. We still got 36 to go.
Okay, I'm going to step in here a little bit, and again, your phone is breaking up. It's very hard to understand you, but I get you're fond of Tulsi Gabbard. So am I. on a practical level, I don't think she can become the president. At this point, I think she ought to be aiming for a vice presidential nomination. And I'll tell you, if one of our existing Democratic candidates taps her as a VP, that's who's going to get my vote. Okay? As long as it's not Hillary. If Hillary comes on in, I don't care if she taps Tulsi as the VP. I am absolutely dedicated that that particular individual, that human being, well, inhuman being, if you will never sit in the Oval Office. But if like Bernie Sanders were to tap Tulsi as his VP, I would vote for Bernie Sanders and I would support him. Because Trump has just been a terrible, terrible disappointment. We worked our rear ends off in 2016 to keep Hillary out of the Oval Office, and Trump was the beneficiary of that. And he's turned his back on his support group. He's turned his back on independent media. He's turned his back on the people who got him that job where he's sitting right now. And I think the fact that he's president has gone to his head, and he's just out there really. Anyway, listen, W, got to let you go. We got to take another break here for commercials, and we will be right back as soon as these words are over. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones to Chris in Las Vegas. Aloha, Chris. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, I thank you so very, very much, Michael. Sorry for the copy machine running in the background. It won't take very long. But I was calling about this horrific judge, so-called, Amy Berman Jackson, a Clinton appointee, apparently,
yes,
who is obviously an activist judicial terrorist, who has obviously stacked the grand jury and packed it with her crony friends of the leftist extremist persuasion to frame the blame on Roger Stone. Further,
okay, it's not a grand jury, it's a conventional jury.
Okay, conventional jury. My mistake. No intentions to do so. However, there's a case called Gary Klein versus the city of Beverly Hills that speaks specifically about judicial deceit, which is obviously what Berman Jackson did. And methinks this would be a great cause for quo warranto, a removal for cause, because of her criminal aspects of masking this lead foreman of the jury as a fair, neutral, unbiased, not conflicted juror, which obviously anything could not be further from the truth. Well, this is a pattern, practice, and custom which seems to be pervading and permeating like a cancer almost every one of these Democrat judges' courts around the nation. I've been victimized by them myself in the federal courts here as well in Las Vegas, where a couple of them stole my house, expunged a $1.5 million common law lien for blood, sweat, and tears equity of vested interest in my home I built. And it was, I've seen this over and over. These judges have become judicial terrorists. This is the tyranny of the judiciary that we were warned about by Jefferson and others when they founded the country in the 1789 Judiciary Act, that all courts would flow to D.C. And
well, that's the reason we
have.
I was going to say that's the reason we're supposed to have the jury system. The jury is actually the highest authority in that courtroom, even higher than the judge himself. And that's the way it's supposed to work. But of course, judges and the prosecutors try and convince the jury they're just there to rubber stamp what is presented in front of them.
Well, in fact, if you read Judge Andrew Napolitano's Constitutional Chaos, he tells you clearly in there that the prosecution has captured the grand jury, and now it becomes a instrument of the prosecution because there is no defense in the grand jury. It is a inquisitorial proceeding by the very nature and the pretext of concerns about the safety of the grand jurors themselves, which may have some actual validity to it, at least potentially, although generally speaking, it's not the grand jury who merely issues a true bill or no true bill. For the judge to overlook, supposedly to do a ratification of commencement, to make sure that the actual facts are there to support probable cause to issue the indictment or not. And this is a very, very dangerous time for America with this judicial tyranny going on with these activist judges who are obviously anything but fair and unbiased. They're prosecuting political terrorism agendas against the other's party, or the other side, at least, the protectional side.
You're absolutely right. Judges are supposed to be unbiased. I mean, you've seen the classic statue of justice, right? The blindfolded lady with the sword in one hand and the scales in the other. And that's a noble ideal. But in this day and age, it's simply not there. Judges are appointed by politicians on the basis of their political leanings. I mean, look at the fight that they have over the Supreme Court. Do you think that it's just the Supreme Court that will shift its decisions based on the personal biases of the judges? Of course not. The whole system, it pervades the entire system. And you've seen it, I've seen it, and we're seeing it again in the cases of Roger Stone and Michael Flynn, where the court system becomes an instrument of persecution by the government.
Yes. These are very, very dangerous times for America. In fact, the world. We all seem to be under attack. The left-wing extremists, these fascists posed as anti-fascist or Antifa, as they call themselves, obviously fueled and funded by the Soros group, which is obviously the deep state. It's clear that Soros should have been taken into custody on many different planets for his economic and other forms of terrorism around the world and destroying countries and taking over countries. If he weren't a deep state operative himself, perhaps controlled opposition, the quintessential bugaboo or bad guy out there. Thank you so much, Michael. God bless America.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Chris. We're going to let you go. We're going to take a break for more commercials, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And we're going to start talking a little bit about the coronavirus. Apparently, some 500 medical workers in China have now been infected despite all the precautions they're taking. So apparently, this advisor over at the World Health Organization, who's tracking the transmissibility of the virus, warns that 2/3 of the world's population could be infected with the virus, according to Bloomberg. Now, they're not saying it's going to happen, just that it could happen. But left unchecked, virtually any disease process could spread around the world, especially in this age of modern jet travel. Okay, let's do that. And let's see. McClatchy Newspapers, which publishes dozens of newspapers here in the United States, has filed for bankruptcy protection. And the reason for that is that nobody likes a liar, and the corporate media is on the ropes. They're playing rope-a-dope, in fact. Let's take care of that. So they're filing for bankruptcy protection. They're going out of business. A lot of these corporate media outlets are being propped up by outside money pouring on in because people, they're losing their audience. They're losing their audience as people get tired of being preached at and being lied to. And we're seeing the face of America's media sphere, if you will, change dramatically. And the focus is shifting away from the old, glitzy, expensive corporate media to the new media, the alternative media, the independent media. That's us, operating on shoestring budgets. You know, no fancy, glitzy set. This is just an extra bedroom in our home. We're out there doing the job that the media is supposed to be doing and won't, acting as a watchdog on government abuses. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the economic news. And see if we have we do have a caller. Kelly in Austin. Aloha, Kelly. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Kelly, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. And what is on your mind?
Okay, well, first off, I remember a time when journalism was actually an honorable profession, and people who actually had a sense of dignity and a commitment to reporting news as is went into the profession. But things have changed, and now it seems to become just an avenue for people who are advocates for far left positions. It's really distressing to see that.
It really is.
Yeah, it is. It is. Anyway, what prompted my call today was, in view of your many comments you've made over the time I've listened to you about socialism, your dislike of socialism, your revulsion for things like open borders and illegal and unfettered illegal immigration. I'm having a hard time reconciling your perspective on that with your willingness to vote for Bernie Sanders solely because of his vice presidential candidate. I'm not sure what anybody gains by that. If you elect Sanders, Sanders is the man who's going to put his cabinet together, and you know what that's going to look like. Tulsi Gabbard would have absolutely nothing to do with that. Like who was it who said that the president's position of vice president is like a back and warm spit?
Hang on a second. It does position Tulsi to run for the presidency again down the road from a much stronger starting position. And so instead of saying I'm voting for Bernie Sanders, just say I'm voting for Tulsi Gabbard. And there's the very real possibility. I mean, Sanders himself said that he wanted a strong vice presidential candidate because he might not survive his first term. That would put Tulsi in the Oval Office.
How much damage is he going to do between the time he's inaugurated and the time he kicks the bucket?
How much damage is Trump going to do?
Well, I think a lot less damage than Bernie Sanders could ever do. I've never argued that Trump is a perfect candidate. I think we have a much better position of holding our republic together and reforming things with Trump in office than with a lunatic like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or really any of the Democrat candidates up there. Tulsi Gabbard.
If it'll make you feel any better, unless Bernie taps Tulsi Gabbard as his VP, I'm not voting for him. I'm probably going to vote for Trump just because the Democrats don't have a credible candidate out there. Joe Biden is imploding. Elizabeth Warren has lied about everything, including her ethnic background. Bernie Sanders is not perfect. He's far from perfect. They don't have a good candidate out there. The Democrats have moved way too far to the left, and I think they're going to have a real disappointment come November.
Oh, I'm sure they are, and frankly, I hope they tear themselves apart between now and November. This country, I said to you a month or so ago that this country can't afford to have Democrats in office for so much as one day. They will tear this republic apart, and I think if you give them 4 years, you won't recognize it after 4 years. I know that Trump is not a perfect candidate. I hear people call in and rail about him, and they say, assertively, that, oh, well, I'm not going to vote for him. Well, what other loser are you going to vote for out there? I'm curious. I'd like to know.
That old saying, if God intended us to vote, he would have given us real candidates. We don't have any. We don't. Long before we walk into that polling place, the powers that be, the establishment, they've already filtered out the candidates. So we basically get our choice of which owned, controlled puppet we're going to allow to sit in our Oval Office.
I'm aware of that, but I'm acutely aware of the fact that if you put any Democrat in office, that I think this republic, which is teetering on the brink right now, is going to collapse. Again, I think our chances of holding things together and reforming things have a much better chance of succeeding with Trump in office. Now that means that if he's reelected, we have to work within there very aggressively to make sure that the people who have caused trouble within the Republican Party are voted out of office. But you've got to get him back in office one more time. We can't run the risk of putting any one of these Democrats in office because you know what the end result would be.
Well, I understand what you're saying here. And like I said, barring one of the Democrats tapping Tulsi as VP, I'm going to be voting for and supporting Trump, especially if Hillary steps on in. I don't think Trump has been a disappointment, and I think he's causing a lot of damage to this country, maybe not in terms of the economy and socialism, but certainly in the fact that he has not kept his promise to keep us out of all these wars.
Okay, and I understand that, Mike, but I mean, we have what we have right now, and we're walking in right now and expecting a perfect candidate to replace Trump is unrealistic. Again, you get what you vote for, and down the road, don't be surprised if when you elect a Democrat that you get exactly you get exactly that. Don't complain 2, 3, 4 years down the road when you find out that you're living in hell.
I disagree. We don't get what we voted for. We didn't get the Donald Trump we voted for. When Obama ran in 2008, he was promising to end the wars. That didn't happen. And it almost does. It's almost reached a point where it doesn't matter who's sitting in the Oval Office. The general trajectory of our country remains unchanged.
All right, and I hate the thought that we're having to vote for the lesser of two evils, but I look at where we are right now, and I have to admit that, again, I think we're much better off with a Trump in office than we are with any one of the Democrats. Tulsi Gabbard is an interesting little phenomenon. She's not going to go anywhere because she's on a fringe area of the Democrat Party that the Democrat Party really wants to eliminate. They want to ignore.
She's considered fringe because she wants to end the domination of the military-industrial complex. Anyway, listen, Kelly, we're going to let you go here, and we're going to take another phone call. This from Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. I was getting ready to put your face on a milk carton. We haven't heard from you in a little while.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I got it. The last caller, Kelly, he made some good points, but I hate to break it to you, but we're not a republic anymore. We're not. An empire run by an oligarchy. And if you don't believe me, go ask McCabe because they ain't going to prosecute him, right? The Justice Department?
Yeah.
What a scam. And what's Trump doing about it? The lesser of two evils, Zippo. Zero. So he's part of the...
He's part of the problem.
That's why... Yeah, I mean... Well, the lesser of two evils, but he's not keeping the republic together because it doesn't exist anymore. Bernie Sanders, the problem with Bernie Sanders is he won't change the system either because he didn't go up against Hillary when she stole the nomination with the DNC, so he kept his mouth shut. So he's nothing.
I think it was shut for him. If you remember that time he showed up and he was all bruised and it looked like he'd been beaten up.
Oh, yeah, that was true. But, Mike, there was also that emails. Remember the emails? One of the emails says we had leverage on Bernie Sanders. So he's got skeletons in his closet, too. They all do. And Roger Stone, he used to be in the Nixon administration, right?
I believe so, yes.
So he's not exactly Mother Teresa. He's a carpetbagger also. And I guarantee you, Mike, when he gets less time, he'll write a book like John Bolton. What a scam this whole thing is, Mike. I mean, I don't know. I know Joe from Tennessee. He made some great points the other day, and so did Tom from Florida. But that's one thing, Tom from Florida, I got to disagree with. Just because Trump has a lot of people going to his rallies doesn't really mean squat. That actually scares me because a lot of those people just don't understand what's really going on. Did Trump mention how the Federal Reserve is still pumping like billions of dollars into the repo market per day?
Yes.
I mean, you know what I mean, Mike? Like, dude, these people don't know that. Your listeners do, but, well, not all of them, but you know what I mean? Like, and then with Syria, the same thing. Like, our troops, the Syrian people, like, what the hell are you doing here? Get out of my country, imperialist empire. These all of our soldiers / troops are basically working for the empire, like Smedley Butler said. So I mean, Mike, you said it. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, and whoever we vote for, like Obama or whatever, nothing's been changed or fixed. And I'm curious, Mike, like when the new budget for 2020? Is there anything about infrastructure in there?
Not really. I mean, he's cut money on pretty much everything except the military and Israel.
Why? Like why? Like what? We have 10 aircraft carriers, which is a poster child for empire. 10 aircraft carriers, which
half of them are out of service. They're in dock undergoing repairs.
But that tells you we're an empire, right? Like having that many aircraft carriers to project power around the world is empire. And then I know Steve Elkins and a couple of your other callers, I think included Joe from Tennessee, also talked about how the Philippines, China can gobble them up. Well, if Philippines want to be gobbled up by China, that's their business. You know, that's,
Yeah.
If they want to if they want to join China's, like that whole Belt and the Road thing, that has nothing to do with us. But to us, we have nothing, like China has more to offer them than we have to Philippines. You know, we offer them our bases, and like people who, you know, leave our ships, go shopping in, you know, through the Philippines area and all that. I've never been to the Philippines, but I know people who live in the Philippines because they're Filipino. But like, but we have nothing to offer them, but China has more to offer them and China's in the area.
Yes.
You know, like, but it's just like, this is another thing of empire. We don't want another country coming in and getting in our, you know, in our empire.
They're cutting in on our turf. They're cutting in on our turf. I mean, you know, China can't gobble up the Philippines. It's the United States' job to gobble up the Philippines.
Hey, Mike, you know what's ironic about the whole thing? China sells us their products, and then we ship the recycling mixed with garbage to Philippines that they're not taking anymore.
No, they're not taking it anymore.
And Canada remember Canada was shipping it well, Canada was shipping all their garbage recycling to the Philippines, which some of the recycling had baby diapers in and stuff, which I guess you can't recycle. You know, but I mean, you can't make this stuff up, though. Like, if you're Duterte, you know, or a Filipino, like, this is what the West has to offer, though. Like, recycling garbage, like piles of garbage. You know, at least China, since they're in that area, they have a lot more to offer in terms of infrastructure. Sure, China's got a virus going on, but so does the world right now. But at the end of the day, Mike, the virus is going to subside, and China is still an economic powerhouse. I mean, that's just the reality of the day of the time we're in. We're not an economic. And Mike, you know what's funny even more? You can't. If manufacturing stops in China, it hurts the world. When's America going to start building a factory for the time it takes for China to recover from their, you know, from the? It would take years here. I mean, come on. I still say the jobs ain't coming back because Trump's been in how long? And they're not coming back. They haven't come back. You know, like, that's just the reality also. So, I mean, Trump, it's not just a disappointment, Mike, but he has done nothing. He put all the same people in of the establishment. William Barr. We talked about him a while ago. We all know who William Barr was.
Yes.
You know, like, so he hasn't changed the system, you know? And I'm sorry, Kelly, you think Trump is good for, like, better for a republic than, and by the way, Mike, also, Trump's a socialist because he bailed out the farmers.
Yes.
Right? And he also bailed out the banks through the Federal Reserve for the money.
So did Obama, and so did Clinton.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah.
So what's changed? It's like, remember that Time magazine cover had like a picture of Bush on one side and his face looked like Obama? You can add Trump to that picture.
Yes.
Yeah, probably Clinton's in there too, a little Clinton, because nothing's changed, folks. We're in the same situation. Actually, we're in a worse situation because of all this stealth QE. We're in trouble.
Yep.
We're in trouble, man. I mean, Mike, I got in New Jersey. Pier 1 imports are closing the stores. There's stores, a lot of stores are closing over here. So,
Yes,
all I got to say, Mike, have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to take a break for commercials. More phone calls after we come back from these words from our sponsors. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phones to Jim in New York. Aloha, Jim. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing here?
I'm good. I missed you the last month or so. You know, I got some short supplements you can take. Anyone can take that are very helpful. One, I would recommend turmeric with black pepper.
Yes.
20 to 1 turmeric, 20 turmeric, 1 to 1 black pepper. Oil of oregano is very good. In fact, Chinese, I read, were giving people vitamin C and oil of oregano to help them fight off any coronavirus infection. I recommend that. It's very good for you. Another good one is black seed oil. It's very good. And, of course, garlic and cayenne pepper. So I don't like to delve into someone's personal health issues, but I recommend them to you and all your listeners.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. I certainly know about the turmeric one. That's one that Claire very often recommends.
Yes.
But I got a whole medicine cabinet full of medication now, unfortunately. I've fallen into the trap of the prescription medications here, and I've lost count of how many bottles I've got in there right now that I got to take every day.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not discouraging prescriptions, but these spices and herbs and oils can help supplement your prescriptions. The previous caller, not Dustin, but Kelly, he's a nice man, but, you know, to me, the lesser of two evils is still evil.
Agreed.
And, I mean, me personally, I don't blame people for voting for Trump. You know, it looked like certainly a better choice than Hillary. But, you know, we're here now. Trump has been a big disappointment. I'll applaud him when he does well, and I'll criticize him when he doesn't. But,
sounds reasonable.
You know, I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, no matter who, if they elect Mother Teresa, it will be drone attacking civilians the next day. That's how I think, in a sense, they really are puppets. So I don't get caught up in this coming election. It's entertaining. On the surface, I like Bernie. People call him a socialist, but that was Bush, wasn't. Bush wasted $7 trillion on war. Could you hold me over? I have.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you over. I'm going to hold you over. We're going to do station identification. We'll be right back after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. Hour number 3. The phone lines are available, 800-313-9443. We're talking with Jim in New York. And Jim, you had something else you wanted to add.
Disenchanted with the quote, alt-right. I think most of the alt-right has been co-opted. Sites like Breitbart and Alex Jones. I mean, I don't know. They've just lost their minds. I mean, you know, they obsess over the 1% of Muslims in this country like that's a threat. Ignoring, you know, the Zionist Jews like they have no power. Muslims, everything's Muslims. They obsess over AOC, Omar, Greta. These people have no real power. And I think the alt-right has lost their way, to say the least. Now, meanwhile, you have the neocons around Trump that you should really be worried about. 3 times he risked major war when he killed that general a month ago, Soleimani. He bombed Syria twice. 3 times he risked a major war with his neocons around him. They're a real danger. And the alt-right just, you know, glosses over that. I mean, you know, where are their priorities? Frankly, I don't know who's worse, the alt-right, and I don't mean your audience. You have an informed audience. I don't know who's worse, the alt-right or the left, or the loony left. I don't know who's more dangerous. I mean, there's a lot of good people on the left that will never be on television. I mean, Jimmy Dore, he has a weekly show. Abby Martin, many other good liberals out there who were anti-war. And, but,
Abby
I
Martin was
read...
on TV for a while.
Was she?
Yeah, she was.
Oh, well, but, there's a good left out there. And, I have more in common with some of them than I do the alt-right. The alt-right, I mean, I read the comment sections, and, after they killed that general, I went to Breitbart, 90% of them were applauding it. Like, oh, these Muslims.
Yeah.
Muslims. 90%, that's the alt-right. So, I don't know who's worse. Alt-right really needs an introspection of themselves. Breitbart, they banned me. As I called the Bush administration a bunch of war criminals who lied us into war. I'm banned. That shows any site that bans you from commenting, right there that they can't be trusted.
Yes.
So, these sites like Breitbart, I'm using an example, they're purging free speech from the right. The right is also purging free speech. So, yeah, you can't comment on Breitbart, Free Republic. If you don't toe the Republican neocon line, you're gone. So, people on the alt-right, I think they're, some of them, most of them, not your audience, are more dangerous than the loony left, in my opinion. And I think the alt-right, except for your show and others, there's something wrong with them. Other thing, they obsess over their guns. I had one guy, he said, I was in a chat room, he said, oh, I don't care if they bomb Iran as long as I can keep my guns. And I'm like, I don't want to be associated. Yeah, I was like, I don't want to be near these people. I don't want to be associated. I mean, I'm pro-Second Amendment. But this guy's willing to go along with nuking Iran. A couple others said the same thing. As long as he can keep his guns. I'm like, to do what? What is he going to do with his guns? Start a civil war? Give me a break. So these alt-right guys scare me. A lot of them. I want nothing to do with them. To me, they're as bad, and they're as bad as the loony left. I don't want to be associated with them. But your audience is terrific, well informed, and I'm glad you're feeling better. And thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. We're going to do a shout out now to our honor affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. And back to the phones to Al in Canada. Al, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike.
Hi.
You have had some good callers.
Yes.
Yep, Dustin was on fire, as usual.
Yes.
He really kind of hit on things with the money and power. The Federal Reserve, like you said, the repo market. I mean, that's huge. Those numbers are we're the United States and the world as in general that has been pumping cash into the rich folks' hands by buying up their bad debt that they created is approaching $1 trillion in 1 year.
Yes.
If not higher. But they use deception and all this sort of thing to try and hide these facts. And the facts speak for themselves with anything. It's always nice to shed light on things, especially things that some people would, like to remain hidden. Like the simple fact that we do live on a globe. There is an axis
that this globe spins on, hence our 24-hour day. That's called longitude. And latitude splits the globe up the other way.
North to south.
Yes. Obviously, 0 is the equator, and then you go, 45 degrees one way, 90 degrees one way and 90 the other. So Greta Thunberg tweeted out Antarctica is 21.6 degrees Celsius. What a load of crap. That's
It
ridiculous.
is a load of crap. I mean, that's well above the melting point.
Oh, most people don't even know how big Antarctica really is, not to mention the simple fact that where they took that measurement is at the northernmost part of Antarctica, which is a lot closer to the equator than Iceland. In Iceland's highest historical temperature is about 30.5 degrees Celsius. It's pure, utter nonsense. So I was going to ask you if it would be possible for you to put like one of these maps of the world on your webpage and like keep it there, so people can click on it and go, oh yeah, see, look at that, latitude, longitude. There's 24 hours in a day. I wonder why. Well, we got to break it up somehow, right?
Well, why wouldn't you go to Google Earth? I mean, you can go to Google Earth and you can type in latitude, longitude. It's still the Earth. I mean, Google will blur military bases and things like that. But Google Earth actually started as an independent company that was acquired by Google, and it's a very accurate mapping system. And you can enter latitude and longitude and go there directly.
Yep. And so I suggest that most people nowadays, Mike, when I say most, I mean the ones that are using, these social media nonsense crapola, and they're indoctrinated right into it, into thinking that's going to bring them closer together. But in actual fact, it's not. I suggest that those people, the young folk, get a little more education and really understand how things actually really work. And that's how you can see how we're being deceived.
Yes.
And lied to. And it's always the same thing. It always comes down to money and power. Who has it and who uses it? That's all it is. Everything always comes down to that very simple thing. It always will. So, all these little, what do they call those, distractions they put up?
Yes.
That's what they are. They're there designed to get us into fighting each other, so we don't really look at who's behind that goddamn curtain over there and is making all of us miserable, the whole world miserable, just so that they can project their power, being the psychotic narcissists they are.
Yes.
It's very easy to understand. It's a shame that the United States citizens can't even see that. There is no left or right. That is a construct that was designed to keep people in little boxes, categorized, alphabeticalized,
Alphabetized.
All of it.
Yeah.
Everything. There's no isms, like, conservatism, liberalism, socialism. It's all nonsense. Those are little things that they create to try and categorize people, to get them to keep fighting amongst themselves instead of really looking at what's going on. And it's working. It's working like a charm, because education now sucks. A grade 10 education used to be a grade 5 education, especially when you consider the really hardcore stuff like mathematics and how it applies to science. They're very intertwined. The moment you give a child a calculator to figure something out, you steal that child's creativity into understanding how it actually all works and comes together. It's a shame. We're killing ourselves. We're killing our own society with all this nonsense. And it keeps projecting, and they keep throwing more at us to keep us all divided. Now some guy's going to be in the Olympics running
Yes.
as a woman.
Yes.
Yeah. If I were a woman, and I'm
That
not.
is going to provoke an international condemnation, and maybe that'll start to be the end of this whole tranny nonsense, along with that federal lawsuit these high schoolers have filed. I mean, it really is. The whole world has gone bizarre.
It's gone crazy, man. I sent you a
Really,
video.
really
I sent you a little link to one of my favorite movies, The Big Lebowski. And it sums it up pretty much right there. You know, you start letting these little things go here and there. Next thing you know, we're in a world of hurt.
Yep.
And it's starting to hurt real bad, Mike.
It is. It really, really is.
Anyway, I got to let you go. I appreciate your time. Your
well,
callers
thank you
are
very
awesome.
much for the phone call. Yeah,
Thanks,
the callers
Dustin.
are awesome today.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. We're going to switch over to Bruce in Texas. Bruce, thank you for waiting. What's on your mind today?
Michael, hey, I just want to let you know, man, you sound so much more chipper and on the mark than you did before you went in the hospital, man. It's just great to hear that.
Well, thank you. But apparently, I've
I
been
don't
suffering from this condition since last summer, and going back and looking at some of the archive footage, I can just see that slight deterioration. But they've got me on the mend, and yeah, I'm better. I'm, the real Michael Rivero has returned.
All right, good. Okay, do you ever watch False Flag Weekly News, hosted by Kevin Barrett? He usually has a guest co-commentator.
I don't, but I should.
It's a 1 hour rundown, sort of like your show, but more condensed. It's a weekly wrap up, and it's pretty good stuff. You ought to watch it maybe if you get the time. It airs every Friday morning, 11 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
And today he digs up some pretty good stuff, like the New York Times. I'm pretty surprised at this, but maybe because they're jabbing back at Trump. And it's a Jewish writer, so she may not be plugged into the big system. I don't know, but she put out this article on Trump's on the so-called attack by Iranian militias on the that killed the U.S. contractor. It was a white Kia pickup truck that turned off a desert road and rumbled into a dirt track, stopping near a marsh. Okay, and
yep.
where this truck, I'm going to wrap it up pretty quick here. The Iraqis don't believe that it was a Iranian militia.
No.
The truck was found abandoned. They're blaming it on ISIS.
Yes.
Okay. And so I think this was a false flag setup. Israeli snipers were found during the Iraq War in early 2000s, sniping at U.S. Marines in order to draw reprisals upon Shiite militias. And we all know, I think, anyone who's halfway informed knows that ISIS is funded through intelligence agencies linked to Israel and the West. And so this whole thing, we almost started basically a world war over, a false flag. And that's pretty damn, when is this going to change? I don't know, man. Since 2001, have we not learned anything, And just the chutzpah of Trump to have that. I understand there was a chair at the State of the Union with General Soleimani's name on it. It was empty, kind of like symbolic that he's gone. We're basically lapdogs for Israel. And going to the presidential election, I don't know who to vote for anymore. It seems almost, I don't want to be too black-pilled, but it seems like I don't have a choice in the matter anymore. I was pretty enthusiastic for Trump, basically because I knew Hillary Clinton's history. And he said some good things, and he was just blowing smoke, it seems like now.
Yeah, he was, but then they all do. I mean, I'll be very honest. Until it started to look like Hillary was going to step back in, I was going to kind of coast through this next election. I wasn't going to take sides. I was just going to point out, whoever's lying and whoever's being a bit of a jerk. But I was going to kind of coast on through and not get involved. But with Hillary sort of looming like a storm cloud on the horizon, I feel like I'm going to have to step on into this.
Yeah. Let's see what happens there. As far as that other caller, two callers before, talking about the alt-right, many of the alt-right leaders has come to pass have been, they're compromised or they're inserted into the political discussion, and they steer people into directions, into traps like Charlottesville, what have you. But basically, to me, socialism is such a dirty word to some people, but you get down to it, I would like a government that was social for its own people and yet kept its borders strong and, stood for decency, sort of like a national socialist, which is basically their biggest hatred, Oy vey! And I'll let you go with that. Let the next caller come on.
All right, thanks an awful lot, Bruce. We're going to let you go and switch over to. Actually, no, we're coming up here on a commercial break. I'm going to leave the next phone call till after we come on back here. All right, so we're talking about the economic news here. Tesla's fourth quarter deliveries from last year earnings are a joke, and yet their stock continues to go up and up. It's a bubble. It is a classic bubble. Tesla just had to recall 15,000 Model X SUVs after discovering road salt corrodes parts that affect power steering and could increase the risk of a crash. We have to deal with that here in Indiana as well. I was explaining that to Claire the other day, that we have to get the car washed on a much more regular basis during the winter because that salt they put on the road to melt the ice and everything splatters up underneath and increases the rate of corrosion here. All right, there's the music. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with the phone call after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And again, a reminder, RBN is having a fundraiser right now. And I understand the control room just finished eating the giant mutant hamster. And now they're gazing at each other hungrily. So we really do need your help. We need you to step on in. And the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash is Public Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. All right, we're going to go back to the phones to Chance in West Virginia. Aloha, Chance. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello, Michael. I'm glad I tuned in today. It made me realize I'm not so alone. You had at least half a dozen callers that are keeping a watchful eye on Trump rather than just blind faith and blind loyalty in him. Jim is right. I feel the biggest threat is not the liberal, lefty, wacko, commie liberals. I believe it's the neocons, the Republican neocons. Why? I'll tell you. Because at least we know where the wacky left is coming from. The neocons are so easily fooled. They have that blind faith, and they follow this man no matter what he does, without question. And that is scary. This is why I refuse to be called a Republican conservative. I'm an independent constitutionalist. And I was happy to hear these callers call in. I haven't heard anybody mention about Guaido being present at the State of the Union address. Now,
Guaido.
Don't you, Guaido? Now, I think that was so inappropriate. First of all, regardless of what one thinks about Venezuela, Maduro was a properly elected president.
He is the properly elected president.
Excuse me?
He is the properly elected president.
Yes, Yes, and that should have set alarm bells off for these Republican neocons. But it didn't. It didn't. So they have a way of dismissing all these things. In other words, Jim from New York, was that Lark I heard also, by the way? That called in?
Yes.
Yes, he made an excellent point. So many other callers earlier in the show made excellent points. Even my fellow West Virginian, I forgot his Steve, maybe, and a couple others. These are people who are astute and are watching everything. They won't fall for nonsense. You know, just at a point when I thought I was so alone in my beliefs, I felt pleasantly surprised that there are people that see these things that I see. And it's a reassuring thought. That's all I had to say, Michael, and I thank you for taking my call.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to let you go here and get back to the news here. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Okay, we're talking about the economic news here. And the Census Bureau has released information showing that the American people are engaged in a major migration to the low-tax states. They're basically getting out of places like California, Connecticut, Illinois, New York, and New Jersey, and they're heading to tax-friendly places like Florida, Idaho, Nevada, Tennessee, and South Carolina. And the census data confirms the trends. That's a big reason why we left Hawaii. It was just simply too expensive to stay there anymore. And it's a liberal haven, and they're going crazy over there. And now we're here in Indiana where the taxes are a lot lower. The cost of living is a lot lower. And you know, I miss the hula girls. I'll be very honest about that. Don't get a lot of that here in Indiana, but definitely the economic situation is a lot better here. All right, the world economy is predicted to shrink for the first time since 2009 due to the impact that the coronavirus has had on global supply chains and buying trends. Everybody's hunkering down. They don't want to go to the store. They don't want to be in a crowded elevator at the shopping mall with other people who are coughing and wheezing and whatever. Meanwhile, as you know, Boeing has had all these major troubles. They've had the disaster with the 737 MAX. They've had problems with the lithium batteries on the Dreamliner, other issues with the 777. And Airbus is just crushing them. They're cranking out the planes. They've set a new record for jet deliveries. And basically, Airbus is planning to hand over around 880 jets for the year 2020. That is a lot of aircraft. They're the new Boeing. I'm sorry, I hate to be that way, but they're the new Boeing. Oh, we're going to take another break here for commercials, and we'll be back. Join us on the air, 800-313-9443, and we will be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're finishing up with the economic news here, where apparently, pardon me, there's a new real estate study showing that the population of homeless students in the United States of America has reached the highest level in over 10 years. More than 1.5 million public school students said they were homeless during the 2017 to 2018 school year, according to the report from the National Center for Homeless Education. That is very, very shameless. What a strange dichotomy we have in this country, where we have so many homeless people in the same country with all of these ultra-billionaires living on these fabulous estates. And there should be more of a sense of balance. And that, of course, is the function of government, is to maintain that balance. But in our case, the government has gone over and sided with the money junkies, which means we are not a republic. We are a fascist economic dictatorship here. All righty, getting into immigration and various things like that. The Border Patrol is reporting a 2-year low in arrests, and that more migrants are now being turned back. And I think that's a very, very good thing here. All right, in other news here, Trump hater mistakes red cap for MAGA hat and punches an ex-NYPD cop's face. We had a caller in the other day saying that apparently there was a dislocated jaw and just really horrible things. One of our other callers also mentioned that a transgender runner will compete in the women's U.S. Olympic trials. Of course, he, she, it is going to win. I think if they send a biological male marathon runner to compete in the women's event in the Olympics, it's going to provoke international outrage. What an absolute ridiculous thing for the United States to be doing here. And I think the Olympic Committee erred in saying that this was acceptable. It's absolutely they blew it. They just blew it. I mean, it just flies against the face of common sense. There's a reason that there are women's and men's divisions in sport, because men are, on average, larger and stronger than the women. We wanted to establish a level playing field for the women, and now the men are going over and competing against the women, where, of course, they're going to excel. They've got that natural biological advantage. Just saying you're a woman doesn't make you a woman. Just saying a tree doesn't make you a tree. Just saying I am an ultra-wealthy paid radio host hasn't made me one in all these years. Down in Alabama, a Democrat lawmaker, in response to the state's pro-life law, has introduced a bill that would require all men to get a vasectomy shortly after turning 50 years old or after the birth of their third child. Well, that's interesting. I understand why the over 50. After 50 years old, your sperm starts to kind of deteriorate, and the possibility of you producing a deformed, or what do they call that, mechanically challenged child goes up there. And yeah, it could make me think that 3 kids per family is enough. I only wanted one. I just wanted one, you know, to raise and spoil and everything like that. Now I've got 4 nieces and nephews that I spoil. All right. Democrats at Yale and Harvard are under investigation for taking money from the Chinese and Saudi Arabian governments. Now, that seems like foreign interference in our internal affairs. I'm glad they're under investigation. I don't know that anything will be done. All right, article that came on out of judgenap.com, a primer on domestic spying. And it's pointing out that while we were all consumed by the impeachment and coronavirus and other media distractions, a pernicious piece of legislation was slowly and silently making its way through Congress. It is the renewal of Section 215 of the Patriot Act. Now, 215 authorizes the federal government to capture without a warrant all records of all people in America held by third parties, meaning that under Section 215 of the Patriot Act, the government can go to, for example, Facebook and say, give us all this individual's Facebook posts, and Facebook will have to comply. Now, of course, this day and age, anybody putting personal information out on the net anywhere, you know, you're being an idiot. I saw a show the other day where the plot line was that this woman was finding embarrassing videos that people put on, you know, like naked sex videos, and then they would go to the family of the person in the video and say, you know, give us $10,000 or I'll make this go viral. Well, what are you doing things like that? I mean, I understand. I went through the Polaroid revolution, where people all of a sudden, when they didn't have to send the pictures through the local photo lab, you know, they got adventurous with the Polaroid cameras. But putting it up on the net, that really is asking for a lot of trouble. And I don't put personal information up on the net other than like some of my wedding pictures and stuff like that. That's relatively harmless here. All right. An article over in the Baltimore Sun revealed that the Baltimore County Council wants more businesses and homeowners to purchase closed-circuit television surveillance equipment. And this bill would create a voluntary private security camera registry for property owners. The devices pointed toward a public right-of-way, according to the proposal. The program would map where the cameras are located to help detectives identify possible security footage in areas where crimes happened. So how do cities and towns expand police cam share programs? By offering to waive permitting fees. That's how. I didn't realize you had to buy a permit to get a surveillance camera. So what it is having put cameras all over the cities now, the government wants you to put up more cameras on your own property that the government can tap into to keep watch on everybody. Is there like some kind of a contest going on between the U.S. government and the British government over who the most spied on people are going to be? Right now, Britain's in the lead. They got more cameras per capita than any other country on earth, but the U.S. is definitely catching up. And another area where there is a certain amount of concern over privacy has to do with the medical industry and all the data leaks they're getting there. Now, that is really personal information, and a lot of people don't want that information to be made public. And because of all the leaks that are coming out of these databases, it opens up the possibility, first of all, marketers are going to be inundating your email, with advertisements for whatever ails you. And there's the possibility that somebody could blackmail you and say that if you don't send over $10,000 in Bitcoins, I'm going to let all your friends and coworkers know you have this incredibly rare disease you picked up in Thailand. All right, we're going to go over and take a phone call from Miles in Maine. Aloha, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. I finally figured out what all this Olympic nonsense is all about. Finally came to me. And what it is I think they're going to set up the Olympics so Bruce Jenner can come back and be the first two-gender gold medalist.
Okay.
In two different genders. I wanted to say, Jim made a great point, and I thought about what he said. They've got everyone so divided that the people who are actually just constitutionalists trying to follow that and be conservative are getting mixed up into all this alt-right, alt-this, alt-that. Really, all they are is people who believe in the Constitution and want to follow it.
Yeah.
And,
well, some of them are extremists. Extremism is a problem that is afflicting our society right now on both ends of the political spectrum. And I hope, if anything, my show is kind of still sort of hugging the middle. I'm slightly right, but not fanatically right.
Well, right, but I'm saying the media and everybody is giving these people, every time they disagree with somebody or simply don't like their position, you're an extremist or you're this because you're pro-Second Amendment or pro-First Amendment, pro-Fourth Amendment. And I think that's where we're getting lost in everything. There's a conservative and a constitutionalist, and there's somebody who believes in the democratic values. And I said there's not all these 16 different divides of the same thing. Is what I'm getting at. But then I wanted to go to these elections coming up. More and more, this thing for Buttigieg had to be scripted, and because he already was talking about he won before all the votes were in and everything. And I don't really see him as having a chance. He might be able to catch on as a VP for Hillary or somebody, which I think those people that are supporters of the Democrats in general, like Bernie, they won't vote for Hillary, and a lot of them are not ready for Buttigieg and that type of activity. So I think that leaves it wide open for Trump. But the one thing is Bernie's got the Bernie boys or whatever he's got. He ran last election, and in my opinion, rightfully should have won that primary.
Yes,
and he's established in every single state. And just like the Republicans, the Democrats are the same thing. They didn't want Ron Paul with the Republicans. They didn't want Pat Buchanan. Well, they don't want Tulsi. They don't want anybody like that because if they wanted a candidate that had any type of popular, support and was independent with their own opinions and not just taking the party line, you would get these people like Tulsi, Ron Paul, and people like that. But neither one of these two want that, and that's why I just feel like it's so scripted. And when Buttigieg runs in and just wins the primary, a little small town mayor, and I think actually what they're doing is, I think Bloomberg is going to end up edging ahead of Buttigieg at some point because of the money factor and everything like that. Because let's face it, the only claim both of them really have is they've been mayors of cities, which
yes,
in years past, nobody gave a mayor of a city. Whoever heard of a mayor of a city running for president? You know, you were either a senator, a congressman, or something like that. You know, a governor, but you weren't the mayor of a town of 10,000 people that come out of nowhere. You know. So anyway, Michael, you're sounding great as ever. Good to hear you, and I'm going to let you go and hear your comment.
All right. Well, you're absolutely right. There's something very weird about Buttigieg, where he came out of being mayor from a mid-sized city. Now, at least Bloomberg was mayor of New York, which is a little more complex, and he had to deal with some interesting problems that Buttigieg never probably had to deal with. But a lot of people are pointing at Buttigieg's intelligence connections and saying he may be a manufactured candidate, and they may be pushing him forward because they don't want Bernie Sanders to take the nomination. But in the long run, I don't know that he's going to be electable for a wide variety of reasons. So we'll see what happens. I still think Hillary's going to step on in. I really do. All right, getting on back to the news here, and let's talk a little bit about computers here. Remember when Macintosh and Apple used to advertise that their computers were secure against malware compared to the PC and Windows? Well, it's not that way anymore. Apparently, Macs are now twice as likely to be infected by adware than PCs. And when calculated in threats per system, Mac-targeted threats outpaced Windows by nearly 2-to-1 last year. The full report details an over 400% rise in overall Mac-related threats for consumers and businesses. Now, the reason for this is actually quite simple. Mac users got complacent. They were being told by Apple that their machines were proof against adware and malware, and for a while that they were. Okay, and so all of a sudden, there were enough Macintoshes where they became a target, where it became profitable to start hitting them with all this malware, and they weren't ready for it, unlike us battle-hardened Windows users. So I'm not surprised that this is now the result. We're seeing, the rebound from being a safe and secure system to being more vulnerable than the Windows PCs, which isn't saying that I wouldn't have Macs if I could afford them. But I'm probably going to be shifting over to Linux here in the very, very near future. Anyway, MIT researchers have disclosed vulnerabilities in the VOATS mobile voting election application. And apparently they published a security audit today of VOATS. This is a mobile app used for online voting during the 2018 U.S. midterm elections, scheduled to be used in the upcoming 2020 general election. And the MIT academics claim they identified bugs that could allow hackers to alter, stop, or expose how an individual user has voted. We additionally find that VOATS has a number of privacy issues stemming from the use of third-party services for crucial app functionality. Findings serve as a concrete illustration of the common wisdom against internet voting and of the importance of transparency to the legitimacy of elections. And remember, if you go to my website, the main page up at the top, right underneath that hideously outdated photo of yours truly, there's an article, How to Have Honest Elections. And you need to read that and think about it. Because the more complexity you put into the election system, the more opportunities there are for people to steal it, to rig it. And if you have not visited blackboxvoting.org, I recommend strongly that you go on over and take a look at that. That's Bev Harris's website. She's done a lot of work on finding out how these electronic voting machines are wide open to fraud. And then finally, there's the HBO documentary Hacking Democracy that you need to hunt down, and you need to watch that. And it features blackboxvoting.org and Bev Harris, and especially that last sequence in the documentary where they go into an election warehouse where all the machines are stored. They choose one at random. They bring it back, and they show how the election can be rigged without even having to touch the machine itself. And it's a very telling moment because some of the workers in the office who are convinced they're serving democracy and they've got an honest election system, they break out into tears at the realization it's all a lie. It's all a lie. All right, a lot of people have been screaming about health hazards associated with the rollout of the new 5G mobile data system. And apparently Switzerland has decided to halt 5G installation over health concerns. So it's a gloomy day for technoids in Switzerland. They have imposed a nationwide ban on new 5G installation while demanding a thorough study on the health effects of millimeter waves on humans. Until produced, the ban will not be lifted. And that's odd because Switzerland is one of the world's leaders in the rollout of 5G mobile technology. And all of a sudden, they're slamming the brakes on. Now, I don't think any one radio emitter can be pointed to as a health hazard. I think collectively, they all are. We got to take a break for commercials. Back with the last segment of our program after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And yesterday we had a caller called in talking about astronomy and talking about the star Betelgeuse. And so it was somewhat surprising today to see this article out of the Daily Mail in Great Britain, where astronomers have noticed that Betelgeuse is starting to dim and change its shape. Betelgeuse is so big that modern telescopes can actually image its disk. And they're saying this could be an indication that Betelgeuse is ready to go supernova. It is certainly large enough to be a supernova. And of course, if it were to go supernova, it would be extremely bright in the night sky. Now, we're not in any danger from it, but it's probably going to be bright enough to cast shadows at night. So that would be interesting if that would happen. I wouldn't mind seeing that myself. Okay, now getting on back to some other news here. The locust invasion is set to leave East Africa on the verge of famine. This according to the United Nations. Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Eritrea, and Djibouti, with a combined population of 276 million, could all run short of food because of the locust invasion. The locusts are already thought to number more than 1 billion with a B, and their population could increase by 500 times in the next 4 months if nothing is done, because they're heading into the rainy season, and with the adequate water supply, the locusts will reproduce. And apparently the director of the UN's World Food Program has called for $76 million to pay for pesticides and planes to spray the swarm. He also warned that countries being affected do not have the resources to combat the insects alone. Just a reminder that Mother Nature is still in charge here. Okay, there's a new scam out there. There's a bunch of fraudsters out there who claim to represent Amazon Prime, and they're calling people up, and they've somehow scammed more than £1 million British pounds, including one victim's life savings, with these cold calls. So be very, very careful about that. All righty. Hacker creates a $9,000 keyless repeater device that can wirelessly unlock any luxury car by creating an extended bridge connection to the owner's fob without their knowledge. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary indeed. All right. Apparently, Amazon has filed for a patent for a system to launch packages into Earth orbit using a 500-mile-long whip. Okay. I can see a bunch of engineering issues that are going to have to be dealt with. First of all, air resistance on the whip itself. And second of all, how do you circularize the orbit for the package once it's up there? It's going to have rockets of some kind. That was the big problem with Gerald Bull's HARP gun, the high altitude research project. The high altitude research project, where they took two 16-inch naval cannons, bolted them together, and fired packages out into space, but they came straight back down. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get out of here. Have yourself a wonderful Friday evening and a wonderful weekend. Stay tuned for John Stedmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of RBN. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We need the money. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.